listen. Hey, listen. My expectation's low. I don't need a timely response, just a response would be good.
Everybody ready down there? All right. Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the regular scheduled meeting of the Waterloo Community School District Board of Education and call our meeting to order and ask that you join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. And will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And tonight I'm going to do something just a little bit different. We have later on in our agenda this evening, we are doing a board celebration for Character Counts Week. So tonight I would like to read the following in celebration of that. The Cedar Valley is a leader in character counts, endeavoring at all times to promote and model the principles of trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. In conducting tonight's meeting, we expect that all participants will act in a respectful manner consistent with these principles. Thank you. So with that, I will move on then to our board celebration, and we have a couple people with us here this evening. I know Tara Thomas is going to come up and kick this off, but I'll just turn it over to Tara at that point.
Thank you. We are excited to recognize the ongoing implementation of character counts and all that it has done for years to support the caring and citizenship approach to our students and staff. And we'd like to invite the man that needs no introduction, the chair of the Character Counts Committee, Bruce Clark, and his sidekick tonight, a longtime volunteer puppeteer in the schools who we love seeing, Barbara Gregerson. Come on up.
Yay. Say, while the two of you are coming up, I want to go ahead and get our motion on the floor, and that is that the Board of Education proclaim the week of October 21st through the 27th of 2018 as Character Counts Week in the Waterloo schools.
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Awesome. And discussion, I'm going to turn it over to the two of you experts. Welcome.
Thank you. I'll let Barb comment first, and then I'll...
Okay, thank you, Tara, for the introduction. I've been part of the Character Counts Committee as long as it's been part of the Cedar Valley, and I am a ventriloquist puppeteer, and I do puppet presentations in several Waterloo schools, and also child care centers, and also North Star. I've added those since I retired from Hawkeye in 2010. And I really appreciate the opportunity to help the children understand what character is all about so they have a common vocabulary to talk. And I've also, I'll put in another plug, I've seamlessly been able to fold that into Leader in Me. So I think that's been a benefit. So here's Bruce, the main guy.
Thank you. I have no talent like Barb, so I don't do puppet shows or anything like that. I just show up for proclamations like this. But we have a committee of people, including Barb and several others, that do a number of different things across the community. They're involved with supporting the 6 pillars that President McNally read there in their schools where they work, or in maybe the organizations that they're parts of, or the businesses where they work. We have a member that Nancy Justice has been working with the Iowa Youth Sports Initiative in positive coaching, positive parenting, kind of an offshoot of some of the things that's done with Character Counts. So it's a part of our, all filling out our objective and our vision of supporting the 6 pillars of character across our community for all people, young and old. We have one main function a year that we do in last April, where we recognized I'll lead off the people that were recognized. Young Citizen of Character, Maddie Gallagher, the Cedar Valley Sports Commission Pursuing Victory with Honor, where Coach Lonnie Moore was honored. Adult Citizen of Character, Jeff Grimes, I think somebody you're familiar with here. Adult Citizen of Character, also Candy Nardini. And we had 3 adult citizens, Jill White also, that works in Educator of Character, Andrea Christopher. So we had some really good honorees, and I'm mentioning them so you start thinking about who we could be nominating here after the first of the year when we start making our selections for next April 22nd, when we have next year's Champions of Character event. The other thing we did last July was we held a community conversation on civility in our public discussions. And we had nice attendance to that, and I hope it's just a nice start of keeping on some of the things there. There's been some national panels that I've listened to, and I'm participating in a state panel tomorrow where somebody from the National Institute for Civil Discourse is going to talk to us, and we're going to try to share some ideas and get some ideas about what else we could do. They did about 7 or 8 or so of those discussions across the state, including the one that we did here. So we hope that's an ongoing discussion of civility in our public discussions, because we think that's something that could use some emphasis. So we appreciate your support, and we're going to continue to keep on working. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you both for all the years that you've championed character counts. You know, my children have come home many a times with the pillars and talk about them. Barb, like you said, just like character counts, I'm just like Leader and Me, they dovetail together very nicely. So we really appreciate those things. And I think all of us could use a little bit more civility in our lives. So thank you both. Appreciate it. So, all right. Is there anything further then? All right, then all those in favor of approving the week of October 21st through the 27th as Character Counts Week in the Waterloo schools, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye, motion carried. Thank you again. All right, that brings us to information from individuals and delegations, and I'm curious tonight to see if there's anyone here who wishes to address the board. I won't read my little civility spiel unless there is someone, so. All right, then seeing no one, we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is item B on page 4. And this is the East High School music trip to New York City. And I'm going to go ahead and get this motion on the table, and that is that the Board of Education approve the East High School music trip to New York City scheduled for spring break of 2020. Can I double check? Is it 2020, not 2019? Correct. Okay, so it's we're that far out. Okay, spring break of 2020.
So moved.
Thank you, Sue. And a second? Awesome. Thanks. So with that, I'm going to invite Joelle Smith up to talk a little bit about this. And sorry, I just wanted to make sure when I read that, I thought, wait a minute, is it this spring? Okay.
Yes, we need time to raise money.
Yeah, I get that. So,
yes, we, as you may or may not know, we did join with West on the last trip a year and a half, and that was a very exciting time. I think our ideas for our next trip between the two programs were different, and so we wanted to pursue something different in the way of what New York City has as far as fine arts. We're going to be exploring a lot of different places there. And as a little change in the itinerary that you might have, instead of a clinic at the fine arts school that's listed in your itinerary, we will be going to, the LaGuardia High School for Performing Arts, which is right on the campus of the Lincoln Center. If you don't know much about this Performing Arts High School is an audition based. They receive 18,000 audition tapes a year, and they only accept around 700. And it is just amazing, and it was named after Mayor LaGuardia, who established that school, and they have an amazing facility, and it's just going to be amazing. So I'm really excited for that clinic, and just to see the Lincoln Center. We're going to be seeing 2 Broadway musicals, and plans are in place for future upcoming music performances related to that. And your itinerary lists a 5-day with including travel trips. So we are going to be doing a lot in the 3 full days that we'll be there, but a lot of sightseeing, a lot of historical things, as well as fine arts things. And any questions about that?
Approximately how much does a student have to
Right
raise?
now, that's a good question. We estimated, the estimate that you have in front of you is for 1 bus, but we are looking to hopefully take 2 buses, which will bring the cost down to $1,000. So that's what we're pushing towards. We're looking at some fundraising, including SNAP, which I don't know if you are all familiar with that. And that would help bring the total cost of everything down as we raise funds for that. Students will be able to raise their own funds individually, but we're looking at other avenues to bring the total cost for everybody down as much as we can. So about $1,000.
Thank you.
And I was just wondering, as far as like it'll be like 7th and 8th graders that will actually be up in the high school
The
at
eighth
this
grade
time?
this year would be included as a possibility. I'm going to go to the middle schools that will be coming to East and make sure that their parents are aware. We'll include them in the parent meeting, the initial informational parent meeting, so that they can also have all the information they need. So if they choose to go next year, they can. That's another reason why we do a 3-year rotation, so that those incoming freshmen, if they don't have the opportunity or the funds to go this year, then they can go their senior year to wherever we go again.
And I
So.
think it would be a good recruitment tool as far as retaining some of those 8th graders
Yes.
into 9th grade band. So
Definitely.
Perfect.
Yes.
No, I think it sounds like a great trip, just looking at itineraries, so how many kids get that opportunity to see,
Yeah, and how many will ever get that? I've still never been there myself,
Yeah,
so
same here,
I'm
so,
excited. In fact,
yeah.
my family is coming along too, so
so I hope you have a great time, so.
yes, thank you.
Super excited. And I just want to say again, Joelle, I appreciate you and I have talked about this a little bit, that, making a change to do something over spring break versus the West High trip. And I'm just really glad that we have great options for both of our high schools
Definitely.
to pursue different things with performing arts, because they're so important.
Yes.
So thank you for doing
Thank you.
that.
Thank
So,
you.
Yeah,
Welcome.
it's going to be an awesome trip. I'm quite jealous that I can't go in your suitcase. So I would probably. You're right. So, all right. Is there anything further on this?
Yes, a quick question.
ahead,
So
yeah.
since this is for 2020, are you guys doing anything with this coming spring break for 2019?
No, we are not. This is again a 3-year rotation. We need a 1 year off so we can build funds for our own program and then work towards it. So
Thank you.
no.
All right. Anything further? Thanks for being here tonight.
You're welcome.
All right, then all those in favor of approving the East High School music trip to New York City, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy fundraising. All right, that takes us then to our consent agenda, and this evening that consists of 6 items. It is the minutes of the September 24th, 2018 regular board meeting, which is item C, personnel appointments and adjustments, which is item D, bills due and payable and bills paid between board meetings, item E, the donation from the R.J. McElroy Trust, item F, the purchase of the Edify Assess, item G, and the destruction of audio tapes and minutes of board closed sessions, which is item H. Are there any items which board members wish to have removed from the consent agenda?
item D.
Item D
And item G.
and item G. Okay. So I would entertain a motion then to put items C, E, F, and H on the table.
So moved. Second.
Thank you all. All right, then, is there any discussion? All right, then all those in favor of approving the consent agenda items C, E, F, and H, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. That takes us then to item D, which is on page 11. And I will get there in just a second. And the recommended motion is the Board of Education approve the personnel items as listed. I don't know who pulled this, so.
So moved.
Thank you, Sue. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, India. All right, and discussion.
And I just thought I would just give an overview of, again, it's quite a few special need para, and I'm assuming that's just based on student need, and we're getting up to speed on that. And then also just how we are as far as general staffing.
Yeah, definitely. So again, as I said, the last board meeting, the para and the positions on there are, as they come up from student need. I think additionally we have seen some just general turnover that we're looking at as far as retention. I wouldn't say it's alarming compared to previous years, but it's something that, I look at from a data standpoint on a regular basis. In regards to positions, I would say for the most part, sorry, this isn't touchscreen, so I have to scroll up.
That's why it takes me a minute to get to stuff.
I was going to do this, and then I knew it wasn't going to work, and I didn't want Lyle to look at me crazy. We still have the same positions open that were open previously. We're trying to look through some opportunities to look at what we can do moving forward, not only in the interim, but also I'm kind of planning out as we look at December graduates as well. And so that's some of the conversations that we're having. My hope is that in December you'll see this list dwindle, if not sooner. But that's where we're at. You can see, though, there are a number of special education positions that have gone down tremendously because we've been able to hire a couple applicants.
Anything else for Kingsley? All right, then all those in favor of approving the personnel items as listed, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye, motion carried. That takes us then to item G, which is the purchase of the Edify Assess. And that recommended motion is the Board of Education approve the purchase of Edify Assess as presented.
So moved.
Thanks, Jesse. And a second? Second. Thank you, Astor. And discussion. Well,
I was just looking for a little more detail on, is this on every assessment that's in the classroom?
I know
or-
Darren Hannah's here, and I know
Yep,
Dr.
both of
Mulhorn's
us- yep,
here.
both
so-
of
We can both do it.
Yeah, I
Yep, we
figure
can-
you two can jump in.
Yep, we can both talk about what this is for monthly benchmark assessments. It also gives the teachers opportunities to create their own formative assessments using the test item banks provided, which are aligned with the Iowa Core. So they do not have to create their own questions.
So
With the Edify Assess
it's
system.
it's an assessment
It's
system.
a system
Which
online.
allows them to go and say, we want to test at whatever grade, whatever course, this standard, this standard, this standard, and then it gives them questions that align to those standards so we can build assessments. Right now, we're building benchmark assessments, but it's really labor intensive,
It is.
finding passages. We're using Google Forms, which is not really the way we want to keep going. But this allows us to do those monthly benchmarks around the big rocks that we're working on so that teachers then get information back on their classes, have a month again to work on those things, reassess them using different questions and passages, and really track that month to month. In addition, it will allow them, because they'll have access, so if they're looking at their course, right, or their unit they're working in, and they want to design some smaller formative assessments, they don't have to do those by hand. They can just automatically say, okay, I want to look at this standard and these questions. I want to get a quick 5-minute hit on where the class is right now. The nice thing about it is that it has a SIF with Infinite Campus, which is kind of where we're having, a lot of labor intensive stuff now. So it automatically populates with the kids because it's tied to Infinite Campus. And that'll give us the demographics as well. So the analyzing of the data becomes a lot easier because all the demographics comes with the kids, like what course they're in, anything else that we have in Infinite Campus, so that we can really analyze who's where.
And by subgroups as well.
By subgroups and all those. Right now, that's a little more difficult in a system that doesn't tie to your student management system.
So does Edify provide the questions?
They
Yes.
It's a bank.
It's a question bank.
It's
Yep.
a test item bank that we can choose from, so the questions are there.
And then
They
we
don't,
get
I mean, there are assessments that they put together for you that would be in the category of like a canned assessment, but you can modify anything that you want to do. So it really is just a way to automate your assessment. I would just draw your attention to, or a reminder, years and years back, we used to do something called Skills Iowa. And so I think those of you who have been a board member for a while would remember us talking about Skills Iowa. This is Skills Iowa. Skills Iowa was purchased by Edify, and so hello.
Nice. Nice.
rock and roll there.
Yeah.
All right, little AC/DC.
So at that time, we actually went away from Skills Iowa because it was funded through a grant, and then the grant went away, and so we paid for it for a little while, and then we didn't do that anymore because there were some changing assessments at the state level. So this is this is the new Skills Iowa that we are bringing back because it's so helpful on your standardized, on your end of the year summative assessment. So when we were using Skills Iowa, we were seeing some parallels and some predictability on how you were going to perform on your statewide assessment. But since we didn't have this, we've been really sorely missing that, and so we're bringing that back.
So I think, Lyle, maybe to answer your question, we have identified in the units and the lessons the standards. So they're already identified. This just simply says, okay, so I'm going to pull up a third grade math standard. I know in this unit we have this standard and this standard. Then it will give you a list of questions that would give you an assessment on that standard at that grade level. You choose the ones that are the most appropriate based on what you're doing. What it does, though, is it allows them to choose validated items without most of us are not psychometricians. It's really hard to do the assessment and the validity piece. So these would be really aligned questions with the Iowa Core. And then we can align assessments then directly to that, building formative assessments into interim assessments into the summative assessments.
So then what's the nature of the report that the teacher sees?
So then they'll get a standards report, like which kids answered which question tied back to the standard, which then allows them to decide. So if I do a short formative assessment, like I taught something today, I got a little 5-question thing I want them to do before I leave, it would be tied, it would tell me, can I go on tomorrow? Or do I need to circle back quick because not somewhere we didn't get everybody there? On the monthly benchmarks, it tells us, are we making progress toward the summative at the end of the year? Here's where I scored in November. When we take, for instance, in reading, we do a passage at grade level in December, are kids moving towards mastery through what we do in between assessments in the month, which will give us some really good data on, we should be able to really predict where we would end up on the state summative assessments at the end of the year.
So in each question, it's going to show 22 out of the 25 answered it correctly, and these are the 3 that did
Right.
not.
But it'll also give us that standards report that says this question is tied to this standard and how many kids did well on that standard. And if that was a priority standard for that unit and they did well, you would feel good and move on. If it's a priority standard and we see some data we don't like, then we've got to circle back and make sure that we address the misconceptions.
Will the interpretation be better understood by parents? So when you get this data and you're at conferences and parents are like, I don't understand prior to, will this be a better explanation?
Yep, and the nice thing about it is it all ties back. It's really labor intensive to do it without a assessment system that directly ties to your information system. We're doing it now, but it's a lot of,
It's pretty difficult.
I don't know that I can keep up with it for the whole year because I have to design all the passages. We get the passages, we've got to put them in a Google form, then we got to sort them, and then we don't really have a good way to collect data across the district. I chair the literacy committee, and we will use that to say where are our strengths or weaknesses in our curriculum as we do a curriculum review.
This for every subject like math and science and
It is. We have this is available for all 4 core subjects:
have
math,
the
science,
ability to do all
social
4
studies, and literacy.
Yep.
And is the report instantaneous?
Yes,
Yes.
it'd be real time. The only thing you would have, Lyle, is if somebody went in the information system, it might take a day for it to populate to get there, but as soon as we give the assessment, you'd be able to run the filter and get your results.
will we continue to use this if we change our Iowa test of basic skills?
The Iowa assessments.
But it's-
This is a line, yeah.
What type will we be using?
Yes.
What's it called?
We never know that either.
We don't know.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing is that I don't believe they're changing the Iowa Core.
Okay.
Right.
Right, so because the items are aligned to the Iowa Core,
That's
then of course, when we see the new assessment and the types of questions, we may pick different questions on the question bank based on how they're doing questions, but it still would be assessing the Iowa Core. This also has the DOK with it, so we can try to get the right level question
And
for the
DOK
grade level. The
DOK
depth of
is-
knowledge.
Depth of knowledge.
So it's really how deep the question is. Short answer would be a DOK one, like just recall, versus planning and some other things. So we get to really level those assessments that match the rigor of any grade level you want to do an assessment for.
And I always think of, somebody told me this one time, I thought it was funny, but the depth of knowledge is how fast the hamster in your brain
Yeah.
needs to run. If they need to run really, really fast to get the answer, then that's a higher level question. If they don't have to run very fast, then you're just recalling. I thought that was a great, it's how fast the hamster
Right.
has to run.
So the DOK's aligned. One of the things that we're, that we're looking at is what will the DOK be in the new assessment? Because it's been rather one or two low, because a multiple choice question by nature is a little tougher to get a higher DOK. We still haven't seen all of what the test construct is going to look like, but we have the idea to use technology advanced items. We can do short response. We can do lots of things in here that allow us to address. But I think the main point is this one is aligned to the Iowa core, and as long as we stay true to that, we should be okay.
Thank you.
So there's no access for K1, 2, and 12, or we chose not to purchase it?
We are doing the grades that are tested with the new the ISASP. I don't remember what it stands for. ISASP test.
Yeah.
Similar to what we did with Skills when we had Skills Iowa. We used it, grades
It
3.
counts on readability though, right?
Yep.
So it wouldn't be appropriate for kindergarten or first grade
would
because they
not.
just don't
It
have
would
enough
not.
readability to be able to read the questions online and answer them online.
So it's not available, or it is available?
I don't even know it's.
It is,
I don't
and I know
think
it's available to 12, but not younger than 3rd grade.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
K1.
Now,
2.
those we'll still do what we've been doing with because we do need information, but the readability and having kids take the test would be really, I mean, we would spend a lot of time just getting kids to be able to take the test online that way. There are other ways that we can get good information in K2.
So we elected not to include seniors for what reason?
We just included those that were tested, just as like we did with Skills Iowa.
Okay.
I mean, that doesn't mean a senior couldn't
No.
use
No.
it,
Right.
but
It's by license, so it's the number
Right.
of students,
Yeah.
times cost, so that's the decision you guys could consider, but we're trying to hold the cost down to something that's reasonable. And this is, compared to some of the
This
other
is
things we've looked at, pretty
extremely reasonable. Extremely.
well, I would say that when I was sitting in Stephanie's seat years ago, I would tell you that when we paid for Skills Iowa, first we had a grant, and then when that went away, we continued to pay for it. This is less than half of what we paid for it at that point in time. So this is considerably cheaper, and it's a better product than what
It
we
is.
had before because it has just come along. The fact that you can give it assessment and then 10 minutes from then you can see the 25 kids in your class by question, and it has a little nice little graph. You can look at the dot that's, a different color, and you can know exactly which question, student A missed. The other piece that I would tell you is I think one of the reasons that we held off on this particular product is because at the state level, and Andrew knows this because we just met with him about assessment today, but at the state level, there was a recommendation that came out of the task force to purchase Smarter Balance, and not only Smarter Balance, but the suite
The suite
of
along with it.
assessments. Had the state moved forward with that, the suite
would have been part of this.
had this included in it, and the state opted not to go that route, which kind of threw districts into a tailspin because we thought we were going to get it as part of the alignment, as part of, you want a one-time-a-year test, but then you want monthly benchmarks, and then you want access to tests along the way. We thought we were going to get that, and when the state opted not to take the recommendation and to not do that test, they went with a one-time-a-year test, which is the ISASP, the Iowa Statewide Assessment of Student Progress, which is the brand-new test that's being we will see at some
We will
point in
see.
time in March or whenever
There's a
they get it ready.
website, but
we'll
it
be able to see
says
it.
coming soon on it. It doesn't say much yet.
So at some point in time, that will become
monthly,
available, but this is aligned to that, and
Well,
which is why we needed to purchase something different. It's
And I
not
think that
included.
what Jane said's worth noting, because we've kind of been in a 3-year
limbo.
spin,
Yep.
trying to figure out where we're going with assessment. And so we've done some different things with CFAs and other things now that we're as sure as we can be that this test will be aligned to the Iowa core. As long as we link to the Iowa core, we feel pretty solid that we're headed in the right directions. And getting teachers information right away and being able to use that in their classrooms.
So do they offer a multi-year license?
It's just
It's just
renewable.
renewed every year
It's
based on the
renewed every
number of
year.
kids you have. I would agree with Dr. Lindeman I've been in districts where we've given maps and other assessments would be far more expensive than what this is. And it allows us to build some formative stuff in there. You had mentioned if I wanted to build a couple question thing to give the kids the minute they walked in the room, get automatic results, and then where do we go from here? So all the way down to classroom to we can then compile data district-wide to look at grade level for curriculum as well, which is pretty flexible for what we're spending for it.
So they do not offer a multi-year license?
No, just the yearly renewable.
And there's some one-time startup fees that you can
Right.
see there.
That's
so
only, yep.
We've got to
They're
do some
only
training
initially.
with people to be able to build the assessments.
we'll
Yep.
pay the one-time startup fee, but then every year thereafter, it would be
It's a per
approximately
pupil cost, yeah.
$44,000
Per license.
thereafter,
Mm-hmm.
depending on.
Well, we don't know what it's gonna be next year. They can charge anything they want next
Yeah,
year.
they could.
But we're only locked in for 1 year too.
Yeah.
But it has been pretty consistent. There aren't that many tools out there right now.
Yeah.
1 year seems to make sense, knowing that state could
Yeah.
come back next year and give you the sweet thing or
Well,
something.
and the good news is, because Steph was so deeply into it when she was at Lincoln, when we sat with and went through the stuff with the lady, it's all, I mean,
It's even
everything
better.
that she was looking for was there, so they have continued with it. We don't have any indication that they wouldn't continue with it. So we feel pretty comfortable that this really puts a good tool in our hands to really hone in on what those priority standards are.
So who owns the data?
We do.
We do.
So if we elected, for whatever reason, 3 years from now not to
Yep.
renew, we would
It's our
still
data.
have that
Mhm.
data.
Mhm.
And it's all uploaded into Infinite Campus. That's why it interfaces with
Interfaces
That's
in the
one of the
SIF.
reasons this is a great product, because even the old system, as great as Skills Iowa was, we loved
Yeah,
that.
we didn't have.
It didn't interface, and so everything had to be hand uploaded.
Yes.
So talk to our technology people about how labor intensive that was. You could download it to an Excel spreadsheet, and then you
Yeah.
could do some transfer, but this is interfaces right with it, so the technology
Set
department
up
was
the
part of
database.
it.
And Matt's working with us, so
Yep.
we've had everybody
Yep.
involved. Dr. Horn's done a good job of getting everybody involved with the process. So he's been in discussions with them, so we're making sure on the tech end, everything's working. We've looked at training our instructional coaches to help us build that first round of benchmarks, and then be able to start training teachers in their building, if they want to do formative assessments in their classroom. It does have a lot of flexibility for the price per license.
And there will be professional development for
Yes.
all the teachers in grades 3
Yep.
through 11 to learn how
Slowly
to-
but surely.
Yep.
And there are some similarities to Skills Iowa. If you were a
Yes.
Skills Iowa user, will there be any?
There are lots.
Lots. Okay, good.
There
it
are
won't be
lots.
completely
It
foreign,
will
we're just
not. It
bringing
will
back a
not.
good
There, it's Skills Iowa 2.0.
Yeah.
Because they're the short answer questions, which Skills Iowa didn't have.
Yeah.
They are the math questions where you can actually on the computer do graphing and different things,
They
which
have
Skills
technology,
Iowa
yeah.
also.
Technology advanced items are
Yes.
allowable on there.
Which
so.
should
Yes.
be more aligned to the way that the new test will
Exactly.
be, or at least what we're being told it will
Right.
be, even though we haven't seen it. But
Yes.
the new test through Iowa testing programs does have short answer testing where your kids will have to pull a protractor out of the tools and measure things and write. They'll have to
Right.
actually do data
Yes.
input versus just multiple choice. So this should be a great way to prepare them for that.
That was our thinking as
And
well.
the nice thing about this, the usability of it's really,
Right.
it's there. So
Because we wanted
I don't
something
wanna buy
also
something
that
that's
was
so complicated to use that
Right.
we can't use it at a teacher level.
Right.
You have to bring somebody in from tech to help you.
Yep.
This will just, once you have your standards, you're picking your items, and then you can build your assessment, and then it'll actually the kids log on to their account, take the assessment, and all the results come back to you, and away you go.
Are we still using bubble tests? Bubble scan tests? Bubble sheets? Okay, I
For-
just saw that on here and I'm like,
for
who
cla-
still uses that? But
Right now, the state has said they will, for at least this year, they're going to give you both options, but we are prepared to go online.
That's
So-
for the state assessment that we take
The
this
state
spring.
assessment.
They are still giving a paper pencil option with bubble sheets. Because some districts, that won't be the case for Waterloo schools, but there are some, and primarily smaller districts that do not yet have the bandwidth to
wouldn't
be
have
able to support an
capability.
online test, so they are allowing you to do a bubble sheet
okay.
for a number of years until you can get your bandwidth up to do the online version.
And that was part of our logistics with doing the monthly benchmarks, as principals are already working out, if you're middle school, this right now is an easy question because you are one-to-one. If you're high school at certain levels, in elementary, we're getting close in the upper grades, but principals are working out knowing that I'm going to have to give an online assessment in April. And so however we're going to organize our kids to do it, we will have all worked out here in the first couple months so that we're not scrambling around when it's time to take the Iowa State test.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and I just want to thank you guys for being proactive, because this is not a situation that is the fault of the district. It's because we are trying to stay in line with what directions we're given. And I just commend you guys for looking forward and trying to get this to be effective for the district, yet also be effective for going forward with the future tests that we don't know what we're going to get, but once we get them, we might be hopefully totally aligned with them. So it isn't something unique to our district. I think every district is confronting this in different ways, and I appreciate the forward thinking in this. And then also, is it compatible with the Promethean boards? Yeah.
Because
So they'll use that.
because the
and
Promethean
pass-
board would just, I mean, we could run.
Right, pop
Yep.
it up, and then as the tool, it'd be just fine.
Yeah,
Perfect.
it'll actually assign the test to the students. The students log on.
Right.
And
So we
it'll be
have
there
test
for
security, right? And then once they complete it, then it goes right into the teacher's bank. And Dr. Lindemann, she was on that, and Dr. Akwaji Anderson has been on. We've been on quite a roller coaster trying to figure out what this was going to be, and it has not been helpful for the district. I think we've lost ground trying to figure out what we were preparing for and preparing teachers and students for that. So at least at this point, I feel good that we're on a track where teachers are going to start getting really good information about where their kids are.
And hang on, the state likes to keep you on a roller coaster ride a
We're
long
going to stick
time.
with the Iowa core until we're not Iowa anymore, I guess. So
It just seems a little bit unusual considering all the interface work and all the training and everything that we only have a 1-year price guarantee. It just seems like we're investing a lot,
But how do you know it doesn't go lower? Might go lower the next year. Yeah.
Well, I know, but once you invest in that, you're kind of obligated to, and you want to. But I'm really surprised they don't offer like a 5-year license or something
Right.
like that.
Yeah, I think once we get 1 year, and we can certainly ask, now
Right.
Skills Iowa did do a 3-year, back when the company was Skills Iowa, they did do a 3-year pricing. Actually, they offered multiple, purchase agreements, so if you paid it all up front,
Yeah.
you got one price. If you agreed to 3 years but paid it annually, then that was another price, or
Yeah.
else you could just go year by year. So we can certainly look into that. I mean, getting 1 year under our belt would be, we anticipate this is gonna be a very good thing. Because
Absolutely.
we've had it before,
Yeah.
this is just a better version of it.
Absolutely.
certainly can, Dr. Moore and I can look into
Yep, we
what
can.
they would offer
Yep.
as a package for 3 years.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Then, all those in favor of approving the purchase of Edify Assess, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. That concludes the items on our consent agenda and then takes us down to item I, and this is the sale or disposal of real property. This is the Logan Avenue site. And the recommended motion is that the Board of Education accept the bid from GBG LLC and approve the purchase agreement for the Logan Avenue property as presented.
So moved.
Thanks, Astor. And I'm going to have Jesse then as the second. Excellent. And discussion, I'll turn this over to Dr. Lindemann. We did have a public hearing on the sale and disposal of this property earlier in August and received bids at the end of September. And this is for a parcel of land that's quite close to Logan. It's at the corner of Logan and Louise Street. And so I'll let you, we have some, what am I trying to say, exhibits here that we can look at, but I can also turn that over to you to discuss.
Yeah, we were first approached, actually it's been a couple years ago, by an interested party in asking whether we would ever consider disposing of, which is what our policy calls it, that selling a piece of land that would be next to where the old Logan School sat, next to the new Carver, George Washington Carver School. And so after having lots of conversations about that, we decided that we would go ahead and look at a piece of land. We kind of mapped out what we would be willing to part with. We weren't really looking to part with that, but we were willing to have conversations about that. So as per our policy, we are bringing before you right now a proposal. This is medical doctors who are interested in building a professional building here, and it's a really great thing. I actually had the privilege of meeting with the doctors and having that conversation. So I think it's a really great connect to the building, and I think there's always ways that we could partner with that too. But the amount of land that we were willing to part with will not inhibit the curb appeal of Carver. So we took a look at, you know, where could we, what part could we consider selling where you still would not see, you would still be able to see the building. And so that's what we're bringing before you tonight.
And I also just want to clarify, not only does it not impede the view, but it does not impede our bus lanes. It does not, it's not, the entrance to the spot that we're selling is not the same entrance that the middle school uses. So we had some parameters in place too as to what we would actually be looking at to sell.
So the district is maintaining the pavement behind
Yes.
Yep, that will
The
continue
bus
to be
lane.
the bus lane.
the bus lane.
Our bus lane and our property.
I'm sorry.
I was
Yeah,
going to just ask,
go
is
ahead.
it the same interested parties that were like 3 years ago are the same that are currently?
It actually is not.
different.
Okay.
But interestingly enough, the interested party that originally expressed interest was not, it was not the right property, right time. They actually wrote a letter of support for the new bidders.
Okay.
So there definitely was, because we contacted them when we went back at it again. It didn't work out a few years ago that we ended up selling it, but then they were very involved in it. They ended up not being the ones who bid on it this time, but were very supportive of the people who did.
Okay. Thank you.
And just a procedural clarification, that's why we brought it back in August and put it back up for, even though it had been at one point, we had listed it, we wanted to do it again to make sure that we got it out into the community and to make sure there might be more than one person interested or party interested, and came back that there was this party. So, yeah, worked out.
Got it. Thank
Well,
you.
and I do believe that some confusion lied in the planning and zoning, putting it on the agenda there prior to us
Right.
approving it. And I do sit on the planning and zoning, but I was actually absent for a work commitment that day. But I think it was prematurely put on there prior
was.
to our approval of this contract that we received. But it was basically to rezone it so it would be zoned correctly, nothing more than that.
Right.
So.
Right, and that was not our request. It was, it would have been a request from
From
the
the
people
buyer,
from the
yeah.
buyer, and I think it was put on there prematurely. It would have needed to be on there eventually anyway, but now that's done, I guess.
Right.
So,
That it was approved to change the zoning, so, and that was just, you know,
Yep.
it was nothing done, just a little out of line, I guess
Yep.
they would call
So is there a
it.
reason the price is not included in here?
I don't know, Michael? Is there a reason the price is not on there?
We can certainly put it in there if you,
I think it can be announced at the meeting, but the timing of sending it out a few days before the meeting, before the full board really had a chance to look at it and decide, felt like that was a pertinent way to go, that you knew about it, but it wouldn't be released to the public until you were ready to vote on it and discussed it. But it can certainly be announced now.
Well, before we vote to accept, I guess I'd like to know.
It was in your,
I
Yeah.
know that, but
Yeah, the bid on the property was $250,000.
And there was only one that we received.
and do we have an assessed, I know they quarter out that assessment, but what is the assessed value of that portion?
In the old assessment that they did, it was about $43,000 an acre.
Right,
at
So-
2.5 acres, so.
yeah, so
So
this
2.5,
exceeded.
so
This
it's
was better.
about
A lot
that.
better
A
than
lot
what
better
the
than-
assessed value
yeah.
is,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
so there's no other contingencies in the contract, restrictions, easements, nothing?
It's just basically the clause of working together and everybody agreeing
Okay.
on the purposes of how the road's used and all that, so, but that's been discussed.
Yeah.
And they're certainly open, and, you know, the city, when, at the time we discussed it, the planning and zoning was an issue. But it's just, part of the issue of this is we did not designate this and come up with a legal description of saying this is exactly what we want to dispose of. So the whole process has been, what would you like to bid on and take? And then we can follow through with all of the legal descriptions and contract language that needs to happen. And that was part of that discussion with the potential bidders at the time to say, are we okay to just go forward until all of the legal requirements are done? And we really couldn't do all of those things until we knew exactly what they wanted.
So is the legal description complete at this point?
It is not. It is in process.
Okay.
I mean, we have a partial one because it's part of, different boundaries are already set. But to designate like the south boundary and the west boundary, that was what needed to be added because we didn't know exactly what they were going to ask for or what you were going to approve.
So the other two boundaries are defined by the city
It's
They
the
are.
border
because of the
our
roadway,
property.
right?
It's
By the
our-
highway.
The DOT is the front
Yeah.
side.
In the north
Yeah.
property,
Okay.
It is.
And I mean, they could have come with us saying they wanted to have 3.5 acres, and we could have said, no, we don't want
Yeah.
that.
Right.
And it could have been a high rise, and we'd say, no, we don't want that.
Right.
I mean.
Right, that's
yeah.
exactly right. And we did, when we negotiated with them, we did haggle a little bit about the line on the south end and ended up moving it just a few feet just to allow for their building in the right amount of land. And so we did move that just a few, I mean, it really was 30 feet or something. I think it was a very small amount. But basically, this was the amount that we had said that we were willing to part with. And I think they were very excited about the location is right for them. It's not that far from, it's just a block from Unity Point. So, in the building, I mean, I've seen, a sketch, schematics of what the building would look like, and it looks good. So, it's a nice professional building, and the parking lot is there.
I think in the past we said any line north of that street across the highway would be acceptable. If you look on your map,
Sure, over to the
Right.
side. Mm-hmm.
there's a street. I don't know what the
This one,
neighborhood is.
I can't think.
Yeah.
Anita
Anita.
Street.
Yeah.
Anita
Yeah.
Street over
Right
on the
here.
side.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just
Heading to the east.
East.
Mhm.
Yeah.
in,
Yep.
in past conversations, why
Do you see it? You can
It
see
seem-
it down at the bottom of that photo.
I know,
Yeah,
to me,
think
that's
you meant
east.
Yeah, I think you're right.
The other thing I'd
Well-
like to point out is that we talked about letters of recommendation, but we also received a very positive letter of support from the city of Waterloo.
We did from
And I
Mayor
just
Hart.
would like to make sure that we are,
north of this
announcing that and making that our viewers aware of that as well. So
So if we approve this, does this come back to the table to the board with any changes, or this is it?
this is it.
This is it.
Yep.
And Dr. Lindeman, I was wondering just if you would explain what you went into as far as the usage of the bus lane, because that was a concern to me, and you explained
Sure.
how that would be.
Right. Yeah, our school district wanted to retain the bus lane. And so one of their future drawings did include a potential staff parking lot down the road more toward the south end of that property. And so we had talked with them that would be, because they would be coming after the kids have already started, and it would be just a staff parking lot. The patient parking lot would be the one that's already there. And they'll have to work through the legalities of getting a curb cut off of Louise Street for the patient parking lot. But we had agreed that they could use the bus lane. It would be around 8 o'clock, and then at the end of the day, around 5 o'clock, for them to exit out, and it would just be for the staff that would work there, the doctors or the nurses or other staff that would work there. So we do not anticipate that would impact our busing at all, because it's on off times, and we're not talking about that many people. So.
And I think we did this 3 years ago. We went out and looked at the number of buses and when they come and go and how long they stretch along that access road, and they really don't get back that far,
No.
so that even
It
if
won't
there
impact
happened to
that
be
at all.
yeah, I think we should be fine.
And then I think you had also mentioned that if it would become an issue, they are aware that they would put a barrier up or something to
Right.
Yep.
not have it be an
Yeah,
issue.
the patient parking lot was, I don't think the staff one is a concern even in the future, but the patient parking lot is where their patients would come with a curb cut off of there. And so we would hope that any patients coming would use the new entrance into the patient parking lot off of Louise Street. And so we had talked with them that if it happens where they're coming down the bus lane and turning into the patient parking lot, that they were willing to put up barriers to show that they really should use the entrance that's designated for the patient parking lot. So we didn't anticipate, we felt like it was a very good conversation. We thought that they were very agreeable and amenable. They like the location and were very willing to work with us. And they certainly understand that it's a school, it's, near a school, and that we need to make sure that, students are safe and parents have access in. And so I really describe this as a win-win. I really do. It wasn't anything necessarily we were looking at, but I think it's a really great development on the north side of town.
Who's responsible?
Right, the mayor's- yeah. She asked if the mayor was supportive of this, and actually he wrote a letter on behalf of the city supporting this sale and this development.
Who's responsible for the sidewalk along Logan there? Do they plow the sidewalk? Does the city keep the sidewalk clear?
I have not driven by there in school for quite a while.
Do not.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, there's a sidewalk.
Didn't they just redo the sidewalk as part
They
of the
did, that's
63
part of the-
redevelopment,
yeah.
right? They redid that whole deal.
Yeah.
But my question is this a walkway to the school?
Well, whoever is maintaining it now would maintain it in the future because that is not even part of the purchase. I'm sorry, I don't know actually who, if Marty were here, we could ask him, but yeah, we'll find out who maintains that. I don't think we do. I think that's the city maintenance. Whoever maintains it now will continue to maintain it in the future, and we'll probably have an answer for you shortly.
Yeah. But I think it's a win-win, as you said too, because I think it's going to be a beautiful facility, and these physicians want to locate there, and I think it'll bring people there. Obviously, you have the development going up. I guess it'd be north. Yeah, where Logan Plaza was, the Walgreens. I mean, I think it'll be a very beautiful building. A lot of those medical facilities are, and I think it only, obviously we're getting a lot more money than it's valued at too, which that's a plus too, to almost double the assessed value. So I used to work at Allen, and I would walk over to Carver when they were our first partner in ed, and I'd go in that door right to or it wasn't Carver, Logan, but
It's not very far, is it?
No.
So would that be the staff parking?
No, Stafford.
Back behind there.
Are we okay to go ahead?
Yes.
Yep, everybody okay?
Yes. Thank you.
All right, no problem. Then all those in favor of approving the bid from GBC LLC for the purchase agreement for the Logan Avenue property, can you please signify by saying aye?
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye, motion carries. That takes us to the next item on our agenda. This is the limited English proficient allowable costs in excess of revenue. This is item J. And the recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve submission of the request to the SBRC for $1,113,041.83 in modified allowable growth to provide 100% spending authority for the 2017-2018 actual LEP program costs, and that this increased allowable growth will be funded by 2019-2020 cash reserve levies.
So moved.
Thanks, Sue. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jesse. And discussion, I can turn this over to Michael Coughlin, and we do this every year, I feel.
On an annual basis, we are given the opportunity to review I'll call it ELL budget, because that's what I'm used to saying.
Yeah, you're right.
Because TAG is LEP, and this is a ELP, and so I'm just going with ELL. Okay, so English second language, which could be ESL. So anyway, it's about the second language program. And we have a weighting for ELL students that generates revenue for the district. And and if you want to look on page 29, it's a little easier to follow that. The chart right in the middle of the screen is all the expenditures that come out of ELL, and it's almost $2.8 million in 17-18. So that's it, all the programs that are involved with all the staffing with the ELL program. But if you look at the chart on the bottom, you see the expenditure number carried forward, but then on line 12, you see that we got, by the enrollment count, we received $1,060,000 in revenue. We also, on line 13, there's $305,000 worth of revenue in grants that apply to that. And there is, on line 15, the amount of SBRC authority that you approved in December, saying these were kids that were not on our count the year before, they're now here, we want to apply for the authority for those additional students that came on our count. So that was 319,000. So those three numbers are basically our revenue pool, the 1.7 million almost. So that is subtracted from the total expenditures of 2.8 million. So on line 17, they actually overspent all available revenue by $1,113,000. Now the action for tonight is saying we recognize that and we want to apply to the SBRC for that authority. So it would be added to our unspent balance number. And then next spring, when taxes are considered in March and April, the district can choose to levy cash reserve to backfill that number. It is not required. That is a decision that I don't know the answer to that yet, because I don't know what the SSA is going to be for new money. I don't know how all of this will affect our tax rate. So really what you're doing tonight is just saying, we want the option to consider that we are going to, first of all, we take the action to make it as part of our authority, the 1.1 million. And then in March and April, when we go through the tax decisions, then it will be a decision by the board of whether we backfill that number with actual cash through the cash reserve. So it's kind of a two-step process. And right now you don't know what it's going to be for your tax levy because we have there's components of it that we don't know yet. So it's the SSA and the valuation of the property. The other one is our enrollment. That one we know. But the other two are not going to be known until at least January. And then whenever the legislature sets the SSA. So those three important components that we won't know until the spring. But what the action does tonight is just approves putting that overage on our authority, add it to our unspent balance, and then if the board chooses to fund that with actual cash, you have that decision to make in March and April.
And Michael, can I just clarify that this has to be, we can't wait until then. This has to be submitted to the school budget review committee before December.
Yeah,
for
they
them.
are going to meet in December at their meeting. It's mid-December.
Right.
And that's when they will allow and take action to say the districts that want to add that to their unspent balance and have the option to levy cash reserve, that decision will be made then.
Great. But that's why it's on our agenda tonight, and
Correct.
that's why we're not waiting until we know more of those variables.
Correct.
Because we need to submit this prior to that December meeting.
Michael, it's probably also a good thing to mention here that even though this this authority could result in additional property tax, that being said, I think the board has been very judicious about reducing tax rate. I don't have the exact numbers, but I would think if we looked back over the last 7 years, I think it's gone down 6 of the 7 or 7 out of 8 or something like that. And so I think the two go hand in hand. Definitely watching the tax rate to make sure that is
been a priority of this board,
Right.
and
Right.
shown through the last 6 or 7 years of saying we try to handle that as well as possible.
Yes.
But this money's already been spent, right? So if we elect not to fund it from the 2019-20 cash reserve, in effect, it gets funded from existing cash reserves.
It will just reduce
Yeah.
our balance if we don't, but that would be from the fund balance solvency side,
Yeah.
but it is never, from an accountant's point of view, it is never good to give up authority.
Right.
You may not back it all
That's
with
my-
cash, but that's a component that once you give it up, you never get it back.
Right, and
This is-
that's my point. So what we're really doing is adding to the authority, and if and when we fund it is a future decision.
Yep.
After we have more of those variable answers to what SSA
Yeah.
will be.
And how our balance looks. Yeah.
Right,
and
that's why I
tax rate.
mentioned
How it
tax
would
rate
affect the
because
tax rate,
And I think
absolutely.
we have an election before then too.
Yes, we do.
Do we always overspend?
ELL has overspent
ELL.
their budget for many, many years.
Any
Just
particu-
because
just-
they only get a partial amount for that, and so it's kind of a opposing view, and I'm sure Stephanie can talk about this more than me, but there's a lot of requirements to meet the needs of ELL students. It's not really based on how much money you have, it's how much need you have. It's parallel to special education. So you don't build the whole budget for special education based on how much money you have. You need to serve the needs of the kids. Yeah.
So there's an increase every year of ELL students then? Okay.
And
Well,
I could
and-
also, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, but in looking through this, it just was very, very interesting because it's showing that we served 1,187 students, and just figuring out some math here, but the top 4 languages were almost 40% were Spanish. And then Bosnian was about 12.5%, Marshallese 11%, and French 9.5%. Those are the top 4. Then you have the Karen languages, Karen languages, sorry, just under that. And so it's amazing to see all these languages and how many students, almost 1,200 students of our 11,000 students, roughing it out. You know, you've got 10% that are ELL students, so.
Are we maintaining enough staff to be able to continue to not have enough money? But, I mean, you know, if the number continues to increase, are we having enough bodies to even support this? I
And
mean,
we continue to try
struggle,
to
yeah.
allocate staff toward that. One other thing to answer your question, India, which I think is a really good one. If you look at funding rates for the state of Iowa over the past years, there have been studies that have been done, and one could haggle and argue about exactly how much it costs to for English language learners to make them proficient in English. So the studies that have been done have really shown that the appropriate staffing level is for 0.39 supplemental funding, so almost 40% additional money for 7 years, because that's what the staffing has been shown. At one time, the state of Iowa funded at the 0.22 level instead of 39%. The 22% supplemental funding for 3 years. That has recently gone to 5 years. So I think the state is attempting to provide money. So they're saying, well, we know that you can't learn to be proficient in English overnight. It takes, up to 7 years, some a little quicker, some a little bit slower. So they're now funding for 5 years, which does help. So we certainly appreciate that as well. It's not the 7 years that it may take, and it's certainly not the 0.39 level, but 0.22. And so then that's the overage that you're seeing. They don't fully fund that, so we ask for authority for the remaining unfinanced or unfunded part. Did that help?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
So are there do all districts have a deficit?
Well, first of all, not all districts have an ELL population of students, so not all districts would have a deficit. I would say that the vast majority of districts that have that serve ELL learners do have a deficit. So they are asking for the authority back as well.
So we know of no model that's more efficient.
There are a lot of models that are potentially more efficient in funding models or instructional models.
Instructional models.
Cost efficient. I think we're running about as lean as we can on the instructional side. I do know when you first said your question, I thought you were talking about funding models. There are other states that have funding models that supplement at a greater level. This is what Iowa's is, and so it's 22% supplemental weighting for 0.22 for 5 years. So. I think we're constantly looking at our instructional model, and especially as the demographics of our learners change. So we have to, we just have to work differently based on, we have students speaking languages that we don't have an interpreter for, that we don't even have an adult. So it is a process, and there are instructional strategies that would allow us to work with students who don't speak a language that we are able to interpret but there are processes that we use, and so it might be a great time to, throw a kudo and a thank you out to our staff who work with our English language learners, because they're pretty amazing. Pretty amazing, especially given the fact that we have about 70 languages.
Well, yeah, I was going to say the state really, I don't think recognizes or is really putting enough effort towards, the ever-increasing diversity in the state, And you look at, just looking at what we're doing for, like, even school flyers now. It used to be it was Spanish and Bosnian. Now we've added Marshallese, French, and Bernese translations to help, meet needs of our families. That's 5 languages to help.
And Tara would tell you that we translate our kindergarten, welcome to kindergarten books in 6 languages. Is it still 6 or is it still 6? Yeah, so, that has grown over time. At one time it was 2 languages, then 3 languages, and now we translate into 6 languages. And that, if we were going to translate it for everybody, it would be 70 languages, and some of those we don't have interpreters for. So, I think our staff is doing a great job. It is a challenge, but it's a good challenge.
There's definitely a gap the state needs to figure out how to fill for us.
So we're exploring and deploying the latest technological assists that are available for these languages.
Yeah, we actually talk about that quite often, because we were just at a meeting with Embark, which is a local organization, and they have been super helpful. We actually asked that question just last week when we met with them. What technology would you allow for us? And there are some interpretive services. So we are using what we can, but there's no doubt that there's more out there. And as as the nation's demographics get more diverse, I think more things are coming up, just like the Skills Iowa now into the Edify just really became a much better system. I think a lot of the things available for English language proficiency learners is becoming available too. So,
well, let me just say why I'm so proud about this, because when we think about, as taxpayers or consumers, about what we invest into the school district, if you kind of flip that a little bit and think about how a lot of our English language learner parents come to us pre-illiterate, and so when we train and educate our English language learners in the elementary and middle schools, we're also improving the health care, the crime rate, home ownership, all of those things that improve our communities, because our young people are also helping their parents as well. So if you just look at it from that standpoint, I think this program adds a lot of value to our communities in a number of ways. So,
That's a good point.
yeah.
One last question. Is the dual language classes included in this?
Yes and no, because if you look, for example, at Lou Henry, the French dual language, if they are a non-English speaker, then or an English language learner, they would be counted into this. But if they are a student who, if they speak English learning French, then they would not be.
All right.
So,
Thank you.
sorry, Steph was ready to answer that. I apologize. I'm sorry, I jumped right in.
Well, and on this, our form here, it has 0 for dual language program, on this form.
Program delivery model is reported.
Number 25, yeah.
Yeah, they would be there because they are counted elsewhere, because one of the teachers is an ELL teacher, so they are counted elsewhere. They might not be getting their only service there because they're being served by an ELL teacher. Right, Stephanie? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm answering, then I'm looking at her to make sure I'm.
And just a question for our viewers and to clarify, because we just talked about this at the policy meeting with Tara the other day. ELL, ESL, and LEP, what are the differences?
You want to take that?
Differences, it's just different terminology for the same programming. Different acronyms, the same programming. Yep. Exactly. Yep. It just describes a student who's not, English was not their first language.
So when are they going to rename it again?
Hopefully
Stay
not
tuned.
soon. Yeah. Hopefully not soon.
And the interesting
Because
part
if
is
it's
that-
in the policy, it can be any of the
Right.
3 then.
There must be a sunset on the acronym.
It
And the
changes as
plan
much
that
as
you
the
file
assessment
with the
names.
state for ELL learners is a LEAP plan, LIEP. So there's another acronym that they
Yeah.
put in there. So it's, yeah.
EP.
That makes sense.
So sometimes you'll hear it called the LEAP, but yeah.
But, and just when we were speaking of this, I quick pulled up Des Moines, and how it changed in Des Moines too is 1 out of 5 of their enrollment is an ELL student.
20%.
1 out of 5.
Yep.
So,
All right, well, anything further then on this SBRC submission? All right, then all those in favor of the recommended motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye, motion carried. Before I get to the superintendent's report, I just would like to clarify, our board secretary, Pam Arndorfer, reached out to our director of operations, Marty Metcalf, after our discussion about the Logan site, and the DOT owns the sidewalk. He believes that the city is the one who maintains that. The Waterloo schools have not maintained that sidewalk since the Logan School was demolished and the Highway 63 project corridor went through. So that's what I know, just to clarify that. So,
So if they plow it, shovel it soon enough for the kids to come to school, we'll be happy.
right.
and call the DOT.
Right. So anyway, all right. Well, with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Lindeman for her superintendent's report.
Absolutely. I have just a few things. First of all, I wanted to give out condolences to a couple of families. In the last couple of weeks, we lost 2, and I'm going to say iconic men. Robert Siddons, Bob Siddons passed away, who was a longtime wrestling coach at West. And then just recently, more recently, we lost Brian Jones. And his wife Peggy is one of our teachers at Orange. And so I wanted to just let those families know that we are thinking of them. And both of them had given so much to Waterloo schools, not only them, but their families. And so we just are thinking of them. Second thing, I wanted to mention too, we have talked this summer, there was a lot of information put out to the public about the work that we are doing on our experiential service learning grant. As you know, that was funded through McElroy Trust. And so I just wanted to, we are making some really great gains on that and have recently named our program, which I'm not going to release tonight. We're going to let Tara do a bigger splash on that. So I think that'll be kind of fun, and actually working on some logo work. But I just wanted to remind people, maybe just get it up in front of the public again, that there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, and we're working with the planning committee at each grade level. They are working with, Darren has taken a huge role on that, as well as Madeline Ridgway, who is our experiential and service learning coordinator, and she's fabulous. So just, you're gonna see some really fun things come out of that, and I'm really excited about the name and the logo and the work that's being done there. my third comment is just in reference with Joelle Smith here tonight with the band. I happen to be a parent of a new band member at the 6th grade level, and it just has been really fun. I remembered when my kids were little and I was watching them learn to read. And I think that the band is really equivalent to learning to read, because you see them from just a very infant reader to a more proficient reader, and the same is true for band. And so I just am really excited that we have band, because it just adds so much depth to students, and it's just a really great way to, we were talking earlier that kids who are out for band, they end up having great, better time management skills, and there's a lot of things that come with that. So kudos to Joelle for the work that she does. I would just like to remind people, we are in the process with the Waterloo Career Center. We've been doing quite a few updates, and we have been giving a lot of tours lately to different organizations, sometimes individual people. We just are sometimes politicians who want to see the work that we're doing, and so it's really been really great. And so I would just remind anybody, if you are very interested in seeing our Waterloo Career Center, let us know. We're happy to take a group through. Sometimes there's we've hosted multiple board, sometimes a board is meeting, or a board of directors is meeting, and they want to host. We'll be happy to host that, and we'll even, do that outside of the school day if we need to. So it's a great building, and we're excited to show it off. There will be even more soon to show off, but it's a great thing. And then my final comment is, and it's too bad that she's not here, and I knew she probably would not be, but I just wanted to draw attention to Cora Turner, who is retiring here in just I know that she will probably not be here at the next meeting either, but she is retiring this month. And so Cora Turner has been a guest speaker at this stage. She's our director of student services, and just has done an amazing job for our district. And so with her retiring, we had the opportunity to highlight Bev this summer when she was leaving in August, but now Cora is leaving at the end of this month. And so I just wanted to make sure that we publicly thanked Cora for her work and a longtime employee for us.
Maybe she'll come to the next board
Maybe
meeting
she
and
will.
let us shower her with a little praise.
It's a great thing. So.
That'll be nice.
And that's it. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm going to start down to my left, and I'm going to start to my right. But as people are watching, it's on the left side. I'm going to start with Lyle tonight on board comments.
I have no additional comments.
Okay. Thank you. Astor?
I don't have anything.
All right. Rhonda? Nothing?
Goose egg over on this side.
Well, I have, just reminding, there's no school this Friday, and for parents. And then something we talked about of huge importance is conferences coming up here on the 23rd and the 25th. And it is extremely important to go to your conference and meet your child's teacher. Even if your child is doing really well, it's still good to go and to hear what the teachers have to say, and they can always improve on something. So I just encourage everyone to attend conferences. And then also, speaking of the Career Center, the 8th grade mandatory parent meetings, which really segue into, Tara's done a good job getting that on Facebook and all over, and there's a lot of options. I've seen it on Facebook like 20 times, I think, so it's working well. And it's awesome, and you can go at lunchtime, in the evening, in the morning. I think we've done a great job of trying to reach everybody. It is on the website, Facebook, but if you are an 8th grade parent, it is a huge and awesome thing that your child gets an opportunity to be in this Career Tech Center if this path they want to take. So take advantage of that. That's all for me.
That sounds still yours. All right. So I guess I had the chance to see the West Side Band perform at Valley Fest this weekend. Tremendous watching those kids perform, and this has been an off year for them, having so many rain delays for marching band practice. Like 20 hours they've been shorted this year. Yeah, but still just awesome performance, and just the amount of time those kids put in. And it was like big day. They did 2 that day. We're in Cedar Rapids and had a real good showing and so congrats to those kids, the directors, and all the work they put in on that. So
I have nothing.
That's yours, didn't
Yes, you did.
That's all the band gigs. And East did the same thing. East had their state marching band. They went to Dubuque, and West went to Cedar Rapids. So they both got to do that this weekend. So, seeing nothing further, I would just remind our viewers that our next board meeting is October 22nd, right back here in this boardroom at 5 p.m. And at this point, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. And a second with Rhonda. And all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes aye. We are adjourned. Thanks and have a great night. I like to bang that.
That's the one thing. We're not